Today is Tuesday, December 5th. It's being called a historic infiltration of the U.S. government, who federal prosecutors accuse of being a Cuban spy. Also, a warning from the White House about when money to support Ukraine may run out if lawmakers don't act soon. Plus, the 4 Republican candidates to expect on the debate stage this week. What we now know about a 23andMe hack affecting millions of users. And yet another Taylor Swift record, how she's making history this time. Those stories and more news to know next. Welcome to The Newsworthy. All the day's news in around 10 minutes. Fast, fair, fun, and on the go. I'm Erica Mandy. Thanks so much for being here. You ready? Let's do this. The U.S. Attorney General called it one of the highest-reaching and longest-lasting infiltrations of the U.S. government. A retired American ambassador is now accused of working for decades as a secret agent for Cuba. Federal prosecutors say Manuel Rocha secretly helped Cuba gather information against the United States since at least 1981, as he rose through the ranks at the State Department. It's not clear how long Rocha has been under investigation, but prosecutors have described 3 meetings over the last year between Rocha and an undercover FBI agent who was posing as a representative of Cuba's spy agency. In those meetings, Rocha apparently spoke of working in Cuba's interest and even repeatedly referred to the U.S. as the enemy. So now he's facing at least 3 criminal charges, and more are expected to come down later this week. At this point, neither Rocha nor his lawyer have made any kind of comment or plea, but they're expected to be in court tomorrow. There are also internal investigations now underway at the State Department as the government tries to figure out what secrets might have been revealed and how they might be able to beef up their counter-espionage programs. To be continued. Well, Ukraine's war effort seems to be facing a stalemate, and not just on the battlefield. Some of Ukraine's biggest supporters are also in the middle of budget battles that could threaten Ukraine's future, like right here in the U.S. The White House warned lawmakers this week that unless Congress acts soon, the U.S. government will run out of money to support Ukraine by the end of this year. But passing a new aid package might not be easy. Some Republicans in Congress think they've already given enough to Ukraine. Others say they'll support Ukraine, but only if Democrats vote for certain policies to secure America's southern border. So it's not clear if the next Ukraine funding proposal is going to have the votes to pass. Still, the Senate is expected to vote on Ukraine aid tomorrow. Meanwhile, the European Union is struggling to pass more than $54 billion in funding for Ukraine because of opposition from Hungary. And over in Ukraine, there haven't been any significant breakthroughs on the battlefield in weeks. Some analysts say it could end up coming down to which side is willing to hold out the longest. And at least for Ukraine, that means rallying support from allies. Ukrainian President Zelensky will be talking with some American lawmakers today about the future of the war, democracy, and everything that's at stake. Israel and Hamas are now locked in some of their most intense fighting yet as they come up on 2 months at war. Several Gaza cities are now on the front lines of battle in both the north and the south. With that, Palestinian civilians keep being told to evacuate, but are running out of safe places to go. The United Nations now says more than 80% of Gaza's population has been driven from their homes, and that the situation for people there keeps getting more apocalyptic, citing a lack of clean drinking water, no proper sanitation, shelters with no capacity, very little access to healthcare or internet, and so on. The UN says things will get even worse if more aid is not allowed in soon. And there are fears more civilians could die from a lack of resources, on top of all those killed in battle. The Hamas-controlled Gaza Health Ministry says nearly 16,000 have been confirmed killed in the war. And Israeli military officials say they believe about 2 civilians have died in Gaza for every 1 Hamas militant. When CNN asked a military spokesperson about that, he explained that he thinks the ratio is tremendously positive given the challenges of urban combat. He and other Israeli officials have also been saying they did not start this war, that Hamas did on October 7th, when it dealt Israel its single deadliest day in the country's history. The Biden administration has been in close contact with Israeli officials and has promised to keep pressing for the safety of civilians while also supporting Israel. Today, the heads of some of America's most prestigious universities are going to Capitol Hill to testify about hate on their campuses. Already, the Education Department's Civil Rights Office has opened investigations into several universities over allegations of anti-Semitism or Islamophobia in the wake of the war in Gaza. And now lawmakers are getting ready to question the presidents of Harvard, MIT, and the University of Pennsylvania. Today's hearing is specifically about anti-Semitism. And at this point, it's not clear if there will be a separate one about Islamophobia or other forms of discrimination. But for now, a couple of the university presidents say they're ready to share what they're doing to address all kinds of hate. Stay tuned. The field of Republican presidential candidates is looking a little less crowded these days. North Dakota Governor Doug Burgum is the latest Republican to suspend his campaign. It wasn't a huge surprise since Burgum was always considered a long-shot candidate. But he just found out he did not qualify for the fourth GOP debate after not qualifying for the third one either. When Burgum announced he was stepping away from the race, he also criticized the Republican National Committee, calling the debate criteria arbitrary. The four Republican candidates who did qualify for tomorrow's debate are Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, former South Carolina Governor Nikki Haley, former New Jersey Governor Chris Christie, and entrepreneur Vivek Ramaswamy, making this the smallest debate stage yet. Former President Donald Trump has once again said he'll skip this debate, just as he's been doing, and will attend a fundraiser instead. Meanwhile, officials from President Biden's campaign and several prominent Democrats plan to hold a news conference nearby on the same night to highlight the stakes of the 2024 election. There are now just 6 weeks to go until the Iowa caucuses open the 2024 voting season. More news is still coming up, but first, a quick break for our sponsor. I'm sure you've heard of the benefits of stretching, so I'm here to tell you about a device that I found makes my stretching more effective and its benefits much more pronounced. Even after the first time I used the Castle Flex, I could tell a difference. And the more I use it, the better my body feels. My husband and I both have dealt with back issues, so we've needed something to really work. And the Castle Flex has helped so much. Think of this device as WD-40 for achy bones and tight muscles. Plus, it's the same price as just 1 or 2 massages or chiro sessions, and yet it can be used daily for years. And right now, they're allowing returns even after the holidays until January 15th, so you can gift it without worrying about return deadlines. Though really, they have a less than 1% return rate anyway, so you and your loved ones will want to hang on to it. Oh, and we have a code for our community right now to get a discount. So take advantage by going to castleflex.com, that's flex with 2 X's, and use our code NEWS12 for 10% off. CastleFlex, F-L-E-X-X, castleflex.com with the code NEWS12. Okay, now back to the news. This week, a team of scientists delivered what they hope will be a wake-up call at international climate talks. It's happening at COP28, where global leaders are talking about cutting emissions by 43% over the next few years. But now, scientists say the world is actually going in the opposite direction. A group of international scientists who make up Global Carbon Project says carbon emissions from fossil fuels and land use changes rose to a record high this year, up more than 1% from last year and 100% from 40 years ago. And Global Carbon Project's report puts most of the blame on 2 countries, China and India. It says outside of those 2 countries, the rest of the world's fossil fuel emissions went down. Still, scientists at COP28 are leaning on everyone to do more. So expect more promises soon. A consumer data breach involving 23andMe affects a lot more people than first reported. Last week, the DNA testing company told federal regulators hackers accessed personal information from about 14,000 accounts. And now 23andMe tells news outlets by breaking into those accounts, hackers got their hands on data from nearly 7 million of them. That's roughly half of 23andMe's customers. Most of the affected users opted into the DNA relatives feature, allowing hackers to see sensitive info like family names, birth years, ancestry reports, profile pictures, and more. 23andMe says its data breach was caused by customers reusing passwords that had been compromised in hacks involving other companies. 23andMe now requires 2-step verification and recommends all users change their passwords. Separately, hackers are reportedly having major success targeting Booking.com customers. Cybersecurity experts told the BBC Booking.com itself is not being hacked, but criminals are finding ways to access the portals of certain hotels that use the platform. Apparently, hackers pretend to be a former guest who left their passport in their room, tricking hotel staff to open an email that downloads malware. Then the criminals can access hotel servers to get Booking.com access and find info on future guests who used it to reserve their rooms. And from there, they contact the guests from the official Booking.com app and demand money to keep their reservations. The scam is apparently working so well that hackers are offering thousands of dollars on the dark web to get hotel portal information. Booking.com says it started warning customers and are trying to help people who have already lost money. Well, heads up, Apple has an urgent security update for iPhones just weeks after releasing its new operating system. This update apparently provides important security fixes to the internet browser engine that powers Safari. Apple says sensitive information could be disclosed while using the web on your iPhone. The update to fix the issue is out now and compatible with all iPhones released in 2018 or later. By the way, tech experts are anticipating another update by the end of the year. It's expected to include new features like changes to the Apple TV app, a new journal app, and ways to customize default notification sounds. Taylor Swift has set yet another record. She is now the only living artist in history to have had 5 albums in the top 10 on the Billboard 200 at the same time. Swift's re-recorded album, 1989, Taylor's version, is back at number 1. Midnights came in at number 3, followed by Folklore at 5, Lover at 6, and Speak Now, Taylor's version, at 10. Her Eras tour is also on track to become the highest grossing in music history, and Spotify named Swift Global Top Artist of the Year. That's it for the main news today, so now it's time for Trivia Tuesday, when we ask a different trivia question every week. But first, thanks to our sponsor, AG1. All right, what's one thing you can do today for yourself and for your health? A simple habit I've incorporated into my morning is drinking AG1. It is just 1 scoop of AG1 mixed with water, and I always drink it on an empty stomach as I'm just starting the day. I feel like it really sets me up for success in multiple ways. I love how hydrating it is, that it supports my gut health and immune system, and that it's this single solution that covers my nutritional basis first thing in the morning. Plus, it's me doing a simple thing for myself. And as a mom, that's a big deal. And it's a way to remind myself to continue those healthy and good habits all day long. I've also been pleasantly surprised that I felt a boost in energy and focus pretty quickly. So if you're looking for a simpler, effective investment for your health, try AG1 and get 5 free AG1 travel packs and a free 1-year supply of vitamin D with your first purchase. Go to drinkag1.com/newsworthy. That's drinkag1.com/newsworthy. Check it out. Okay, now back to Trivia Tuesday. And today's trivia question is, how fast was the first person to get a speeding ticket going? You can play along with us in our weekly roundup email that comes out each Friday. Simply sign up to get it at thenewsworthy.com/email or find the link in today's episode notes. As for last week's trivia question, who was the first televised president? The answer is Franklin Roosevelt. It was back in 1939 when a TV camera captured FDR at the World's Fair in New York. It was fitting, since it was at that event that the TV set was formally introduced to the American public. And it's been popular in American politics ever since. Nearly a decade later, Harry Truman became the first president to deliver a televised presidential address from the White House. Then Dwight Eisenhower was the first president to allow TV cameras in press conferences. And John F. Kennedy was the first to address Americans on live TV without delay or editing. Of course, now TV still plays a big role in politics, even in the age of email, text messaging, and social media. All right, thank you so much for listening and sharing the show. We'll be back with another news roundup tomorrow. Until then, have a great day.